for the topic of force design and department plans, General Harris. You mentioned in your opening statement that Air Force fighters are older than the other services with an average age of 26 years. Is that correct?
I believe that was the comment that was made, yes.
So does that mean that sustainment costs are rising as the fleet ages and thus reducing funds that are available for modernization needs?
So there's always a tension between the modernization and the readiness, and when you start putting upgrades onto them, how much can we do per tail per upgrade and still maintain pilot absorption? So that tension for readiness and modernization will still exist, yes.
That sounds like a yes.
Yes.
Okay. So how does the procurement of F-15EX, F-35, next generation air dominance manned fighters help you avoid that downward spiral of continued sustainment cost growth?
So from a force design aspect, what we do is we look at where do we need to be with respect to the threat into the future. That mix of what is an inside force and what is an outside force is the balance that we're trying to maintain. That becomes the mix of the collaborative combat aircraft, the CCA, plus the F-15EXs. So if you think about the number of rails and the number of munitions you can put on the EX as an outside force working your way into the contested environment, there has to be a mix of both. When I mentioned in my comments about the force being out of balance, we have a great short-range fighter game right now, but it's not the inside force that we need. What we need to do is pivot to a more outside force with more rails, the F-15EX and the like. So from a force design standpoint, that's how I would answer the question. I think if there's an operational piece, I would pass it off to General Spain or General Moore as far as the cost per tail.
Before that, how important is the next generation air dominance manned fighter to your future force design?
So the next generation air dominance family of systems is critical to what we do. And what I mean by that is the technologies that are being developed within that portfolio and where we're going with the entire enterprise. It's feeding technologies and it's helped us create S&T in other areas that we're leveraging to put into other platforms and weapon systems.
I mentioned the man fighter. You talked about the family of systems. Can you speak directly to the man fighter?
I cannot, Secretary Hunter.
I want to
look like you want to jump in, Mr.
on that one. So for our FY25 budget request, we are requesting significant funds for that, the crewed fighter part of the NGAD family of systems, and all the members of the family are leveraging the technology work General Harris described. But yeah, we have requested significant funds in our FY25 budget request to move to the next phase of the program when it comes to the crewed fighter.
What's your current assessment of whether the United States Air Force or the PLA Air Force will first field a sixth-generation manned fighter?
My assessment would be that it would be the United States, but it is the term pacing threat is, I think, a very apt term because it is a race.
Okay. General Spain, every year the committee seems to receive a request to reduce the number of manned fighters. How many fighters do you need to do your mission?
Thanks, Senator. I think the part of the last question hints at the answer to this question, and the idea is that we're reducing the number of actual aircraft fielded in order to bring on new capabilities that are exponentially greater than those we're divesting. There are limits to how much we're able to divest that we adhere to, and we continue to work with the Secretary of Defense and the combatant commands and the global force management process to ensure that the fighter fleet that we have meets the needs of the force.
Do you have an answer? I mean, do you have a direct or specific answer about how many fighters you need?
I can take that for the record, sir, but there's not a specific number of fighters. I can say that we retain between 1,900 and 2,000 fighters currently. That's the range that we're in. That is sufficient to meet today's commitments, and that will be sufficient to continue to meet the commitments going forward.
Okay. If the Air Force shuffles combat-capable aircraft like the F-15E and the F-22 into training roles due to divestments, how is that going to affect your current combat capacity?
Well, we're still working through the details of how that would actually play out if that were to occur. But the bottom line is combat-capable aircraft would be used for training, just like a training tailored aircraft. However, in extremis, if they were needed to go into combat, if they were not T-coded tails, then we'd be able to use them for combat missions if necessary.
Okay. Well, this is one of the concerns that I would have stated in my opening statement. I'm sure you're all going to go read the record about it tonight, is that I just don't think we're buying enough stuff fast enough, whether it's fighters or the E-7 or munitions. I may have more on that later.
Senator Duckworth.